3, 2, 1. This hearing is for the claim of refugee protection made by Mr. Sultan Ahmed from Turkey. This hearing is being held at the IRB office in Toronto on December 15th, 2007. My name is Yasmin Sandhi, and I will be deciding your claim. May I ask the claimant and the claimant's counsel to stand up and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly affirm that the evidence that you will give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. The claimant is represented by counsel Mr. Adlan Taramov. In this hearing, we also have Mr. Shihab Kazi as the minister's counsel and Ms. Gurshinder Kaur as the expert witness who will also have an opportunity to speak. In this hearing, the minister's counsel will be allowed to ask his questions first. Then I will ask a number of questions. My questions are for the purpose of gathering information to allow me to make a fair and informed decision about your claim. If a question is unclear, please say so and the question will be restated and rephrased. I will state an exhibit number for all the documents that have been submitted as evidence, followed by a questioning period. During the questioning period, you will be asked questions from both the Minister's Counsel, represented by Mr. Shihab Kazi, and myself. Following the questioning period, the witness will have an opportunity to speak. However, witnesses must remain outside the room until instructed otherwise. Finally, your lawyer will be given an opportunity to present a submission as to how you meet the definition of a convention refugee or a person in need of protection. Can you please state your date of birth, citizenship, and marital status?
My name is Sultan Ahmed. I'm a citizen of Turkey. I was born on May 5th, 1981. In Izmir, I'm single.
Do you have any dependents who are accompanying you?
I don't have any dependents.
When did you enter Canada?
I arrived at Pearson Airport on November 26, 2006.
What kind of travel documents did you use to enter Canada?
I used a fake passport to enter Canada.
Do you have any other identity documents besides the false passport?
Yes, I have my Turkish national identity document, which was submitted along with my supporting documents.
When did you leave Turkey and what route did you take to get to Canada?
I took a direct flight from Istanbul International Airport to Canada. I flew through Turkish Airlines, flight number TK345 at 10:35 a.m. in the morning on November 25, 2006.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Does the Minister's Counsel want to ask any questions?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Yasmin. So, Mr. Ahmed, in your submission, you have mentioned that your safety would be jeopardized if you go back to Turkey. Who do you fear from?
I fear the Turkish government authorities, specifically the Turkish police. Traditionally, Turkish is a Muslim country, and Turkish government based on Islamic belief does not allow homosexuality. Hence, it is illegal there. If you are caught or known to be a gay man, you would be subject to harassment, ill treatment by the government and general public who are against the LGBT community.
Have you or your family ever been harmed, mistreated, or threatened by any person or group?
Yes, I grew up being aware of my homosexuality and the danger associated with it. I was constantly living in fear of persecution and abuse, seeing the lack of protection from LGBT persons and regular hate crimes and harassment that took place on a regular basis. I've witnessed legal discrimination against LGBT individuals, suppression of freedom of speech in support of diversity and homosexuality in the school, and later in post-secondary education system. As a result, I had to hide my homosexuality and not to make any indication of my true feelings or beliefs. On December 18, 2002, an LGBT student from the same police academy that I was attending was severely assaulted by his classmates after they found out his intimate photos and exposing his sexual orientation. In the heat of the events, I tried to defend the victim and argue in his support with my classmate. When senior year students, including the son of the chief of the police of Izmir, learned about this, the next day, 5 of them ambushed me after the class and severely beat me on December 28th. As a result of the severe beating, I have fractured ribs and broken arm and a severe concussion. While beating me, the assailant constantly insulted me and promised to kill me on the spot. I thought I would die and have lost consciousness, only to regain at the Medical Park Izmir Hospital. I was hospitalized and stayed in the hospital for the next 2 weeks. The doctor refused to report the true nature of the injuries, only issuing the note that I was injured in a slip and fall accident as a result of falling from the stairs. Police authorities also refused to investigate the incident.
Okay. Are there any more incidents that might have happened to you?
Later on February 1st, 2004, somehow my classmate got access to my personal phone and have learned about my relationship with my boyfriend Ivan. And the rumors about my sexual orientation spread around throughout the school in a matter of days. 2 days later, I was assaulted by my classmates on February 3rd when leaving the school, receiving several injuries and concussion. I was hospitalized for 1 week at the Medical Park Izmir Hospital. On March 4th, I was confronted by the son of the chief of the police and colleagues at the local grocery shop and told that if I did not leave the police academy, I would disappear and no one could find me. After this incident, I left the police academy. Almost 2 years later, on November 19, 2006, I was randomly stopped and detained by the police for no apparent reason, and then brought to the police station. At the police station, the son of the chief of the police, who was now in charge of the city district where I lived, held me at the gunpoint, insulted me, threatened to kill me if they ever saw me again.
Okay, you have also mentioned multiple incidents of harassment over the years, but why did you leave in 2006 but not an earlier date?
I have left the country at the soonest available date. I have paid for a false document which was delivered to me by a smuggler at the black market in 5 days. I've also bought the earliest available flight from Istanbul to Toronto. I left Turkey on the morning of November 5th, 25 in 2006.
Okay. Did you ask any authorities, such as the police or any other organization in your country, to protect you or assist you?
Yes. I have tried to seek protection from authorities in my country after the first incidents of severe harassment and violence against me. However, no investigation or action was taken to stop the persecution. Further, I did not seek protection in the later incidents and attacks because the police and the authorities themselves were involved in persecuting and threatening me. It could be futile and even dangerous since attracting attention could further aggravate my precarious situation.
Did you ever try moving to another part of the country to seek safety?
No, I did not seek safety in any other part of Turkey because I learned from my LGBT friend that police authorities and well-connected officials can easily find and jail or outright kill people in any corner of the country. Also, I knew that my family and Ivan family would be well-connected, able, and willing to find me in any part of Turkey to execute me in honor killing.
Why didn't you leave the country after the first 2 incidents? And why did you continue to live in Turkey for several years?
I had to stay back because I had my family and friends there. There was an emotional connection. I did not realize the resources that were available to me. And for financial aspect, I did not have $5,000 to pay for the false passport.
Did you move to another country other than Canada to seek safety?
No, because obtaining a visa with Turkish passport to other countries is not easy. Moreover, I came straight to Canada where I feel safe and far away from persecution for my sexual orientation.
If you return to your country, do you believe you would be harmed, mistreated, or threatened by any person or group?
Yes, if I return to my country, I would be subject to beating, inhumane and degrading treatment, and honor killing. I cannot return to Turkey because of the constant persecution, physical abuse, and death threats that I received on a regular basis, and especially on November 19, 2006. The police official have promised to kill me if they ever saw me again. I had been aware of similar cases where LGBT members have disappeared while the authorities either turned blind eye or took direct part in the persecution. Moreover, my parents have rejected me for my sexual orientation. They have estranged me and refused to communicate with me in any form. I fear that my relatives will have me killed in order to cleanse the family name from the shame of my sexual orientation.
Okay, thank you. No more questions now.
Thank you, Mr. Kazi. So, Mr. Ahmed, do you have any criminal charges or convictions in the country you were fleeing?
No, I do not have any criminal conviction or charges in Turkey or any other country.
Do you have any history of war crimes, terrorism, or organized crime?
No, I don't have any history of crime or terrorism.
What do you fear will happen to you if you return to your country of origin?
I fear persecution based on being a member of a social particular group, which is my sexual orientation. I identify myself as a gay man. I feel that I will be dead if I return to my country, Turkey.
Have you ever traveled back to your country since you arrived? And do you maintain a property, a business, or are you currently employed in the country of your origin?
No, I have never returned to my country back home or would never return due to the reason stated above. I currently do not possess a property or own a business or have employment back home in Turkey.
Okay, I have a question, Mr. Ahmed. Have you maintained contact with Ivan or your friends, or most importantly, your family?
I did not keep in touch with Ivan because we broke up after the threats his parents made. I still keep in touch with some of my friends. My parents do not maintain contact with me. However, I still check up on my family through my friends.
Is anyone else aware of the dangers you'll face if you return to Turkey?
My best friend Muhammad, who is still in Izmir, Turkey, told me that the son of the chief of police was still mentioning me in conversation with our former friends and colleagues at police academy. They still remember who I am and were asking whether anyone knows about my whereabouts.
How have you been maintaining communications, and do you have any proof to support this claim?
Yes, there is proof, copies of my text messages and emails.
Do your family and parents know about all those attacks for those years?
Yes, they knew about all these attacks all those years. However, after they found out about my sexual orientation, they have rejected and estranged me and never supported me during or after those incidents.
Okay, Mr. Ahmed, so what have you been doing since the time you arrived in Canada up until the date of your hearing?
I made a refugee claim as soon as I arrived in Canada. I have been employed as a waiter at the Mustafa Turkish restaurant in Toronto. I've got engaged in social activism as a member of the Rainbow Railroad. I'm also planning to continue my education in the future.
In your country, did you have the right to work, attend school, or move freely?
Yes, in principle, I had the right to work, attend the school, or move freely. However, in reality, if anyone finds out that you are a member of LGBT community, you would be subject to harassment, mistreatment, and physical abuse. Moreover, none of your classmates, colleagues, or peers would accept you unless they are from the same community or have sympathy for you.
Thank you for that. Is there anything else you would like to add to support your case?
I have a well-founded fear of persecution based on my sexual orientation and being a member of LGBT community in Turkey. I fear that Turkish government authorities, as they have harassed me numerous times and threatened me to death, I believe that their threats are real and will be carried out one day. I fear for my own life. I believe that I would be killed if I stayed in Turkey. Therefore, I request the Canadian government to provide me with needed protection so that I could have a peaceful life.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. So the Claimants Council now has opportunity to ask any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sandhi. I do have a question for the claimant. Are you associated with or belong to any group or organization?
Yes, I was a member of the Landa Izmir LGBT community organization. It's a local organization established in support of LGBT communities in Turkey. Since entering Canada, I have also joined the Rainbow Railroad.
Now, do you think that you would face more persecution in Turkey because of your recent social activism and the most recent CBC interview?
Yes, my current activism does not fit well with the Turkish values and traditions. Indeed, it will put me in further danger.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed and Mr. Termov. Can we please have the expert witness enter the room? Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Gurshinder Kaur. I have a master's degree in clinical psychology from University of Toronto, and I'm also the executive director of Rainbow Railroads, which works for safety and rehabilitation of LGBT people.
Can you please expand on the conditions for LGBT members in Turkey?
Yes, LGBT people in Turkey face some legal challenges not experienced by non-LGBT persons. However, Turkey is more liberal than other places in the Middle East. In modern Turkey, homosexual activity has always been a legal act since the day it was founded on 29th October 1923. LGBT people have had the right to seek asylum in Turkey under the Geneva Convention since 1951. But same-sex couples are not given the same legal protection available to heterosexual couples. Transgender people have been allowed to change their legal gender since 1988. Although discrimination protections regarding sexual orientation and gender identity or expression have been debated legally, they have not yet been legislated. Public opinion on homosexuality has generally been conservative, and LGBT people have been widely reported to experience discrimination, harassment, and even violence in recent years.
Given your expert opinion, how probable is it that Mr. Ahmed would face severe persecution if he were to return back to Turkey?
Considering the international reports on conditions in the country coming from various organizations such as Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and information from our own Rainbow Railroads network, yes, with utmost certainty, Ahmed would face persecution if he were to return to Turkey.
Are there sworn testimonies from people who are in similar situations showing a lack of protection and corruption?
According to reports from international organizations and the most recent UN Human Rights Council report, there have been over 150 cases of LGBT persons fleeing Turkey in 2006 due to lack of protection from state authorities. Many cases of human rights violations against LGBT persons often go unreported. Our organization alone assisted around 50 people in similar situations, confirming lack of protection and corruption. All evidence points to a high probability that LGBT persons do not receive protection from the authorities. Moreover, state officials often turn a blind eye or are themselves directly involved in the persecution.
Thank you, Ms. Kushindarkar. The Claimants Council can now present his submission.
Thank you. Ms. Sandhi, the claimant, Mr. Sultan Ahmed, is a convention refugee by reasons of a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of his sexual orientation, as per Section 96 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. He is outside of his country of nationality, and he is unable by the reason of that fear and unwilling to avail himself to the protection of his country. Ms. Sandhi, the submissions, testimony, claim-specific, and country condition evidence clearly demonstrates that Ahmed meets all 6 parts of the Convention refugee definition. In regard to persecution, please consider that if he returns to his country, he most certainly will face persecution. This persecution will be based on his sexual orientation and a surplus element due to his latest social and political activism. Ahmed has good grounds for fearing persecution in the future. He is genuinely afraid to return to his country, and there is evidence that these conditions continue to exist at the time of this hearing. He cannot return to Turkey because of threats made against him on November 19, 2006 by the members of the police force who held him at a gunpoint. They threatened to kill him if they ever saw him again. Ahmed's conservative parents rejected and estranged him for his sexual sexual orientation, if he will return to Turkey, he will most likely face honor killing at the hands of his own relatives. Moreover, Ahmed will face a threat to his life from the relatives of his former boyfriend Ivan, who are known to be well connected with the Turkish authorities and have expressly threatened to kill him. Ahmed attempted to have a relationship with Ivan, however, his parents were against it and threatened to kill him in October of 2006. Furthermore, since his arrival, Ahmed has joined the Rainbow Railroad Network and became a well-known social activist, raising the issues of human rights and persecution of LGBT individuals in his home country. He has participated and spoken at several public events and conferences in Canada concerning human rights situation in Turkey, and was featured in the CBC's Fifth Estate program covering the issue of LGBT persecution in Turkey. Given his latest activism and visibility, Ahmed would, without doubt, become a target for severe punishment and persecution by the authorities if he were to return to his home country. Ms. Sandi, with regard to personalized risk, please consider that the submitted evidence and documentation plainly demonstrates that the risk Ahmed is facing is personal and not the same general risk that everyone else in Turkey faces. Notes, copies of messages, phone calls, sworn test statements from witnesses, photographs showing injuries, medical and police documentary evidence clearly show why Ahmed personally is at risk. As to state protection, please consider that Ahmed does not have a state protection. He has a good reason to be afraid based on the situation in his country, and his government cannot protect him. Ahmed did seek protection from authorities in his country of nationality in December of 2002 and again in February of 2004. However, the authorities ignored all evidence and refused to investigate or take any action to stop persecution, citing lack of evidence. On top of this, police officials were directly involved in Ahmed's persecution and harassment. Turkey's authorities will not protect people in Ahmed's situation. Widely respected international reports confirm this information. As per expert witness testimony, a great multitude of international reports from various non-government and intra-government organizations, and exhaustive information provided by the IRB's own national documentation packages, there have been hundreds of cases of LGBT individuals fleeing Turkey as a result of lack of protection, corruption, and even direct involvement of state authorities in acts of harassment and persecution. These conditions are further confirmed by many sworn testimonies by LGBT individuals in similar situations. Ms. Sandi, concerning internal flight alternative, please note that Ahmed did not have such an option as he could not live safely in any other part of Turkey. The state authorities and police officials themselves were involved in Ahmed's persecution and harassment. They will be able to find and persecute him in any part of Turkey. Moreover, Ivan's parents can still find him and continue to threaten his life. The problem Ahmed faces exists throughout the whole country. The people who want to harm Ahmed operate all over the country, and the discrimination he fears exists in all regions. Ms. Sandi, with regard to subjective fear, please consider the following factors. Ahmed is not a permanent resident or a citizen of any other country where he could seek refuge. As to reavailment, Ahmed did not reavail himself to his country. He did not return to his country or persecution after he left. Also, he did not fail to claim asylum elsewhere, as he did not pass through another safe country on his way to Canada. In addition, there was no delay in Ahmed's departure. After he experienced persecution, he left for Canada as soon as possible. Moreover, Ahmed did not delay in claiming asylum. He made his refugee claim on the next day after he arrived in Canada. Ms. Sandi, we are asking you to consider all these factors and evidence on persecution, personalized risk, subjective fear, absence of state protection, and absence of internal flight alternative as credible and trustworthy, and to allow Mr. Ahmed Sultan's claim under the Section 96 of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act as a convention refugee by reason of a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of his sexual orientation, who is outside of his country of nationality, is unable and by reason of that fear unwilling to avail himself to the protection of his country. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taramov. Does the Minister's Council have any further questions?
No further questions. Thank you.
Does the Claimant's Council have any further questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, so after examining all the evidence, I find that the claimant is indeed a convention refugee. In accordance with Section 96A, the claimant can be defined as a person who, by reason of well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group or political opinion, is outside of their countries of nationality and is unable, or by reason of that fear, unwilling to avail themselves to the protection of each of those countries. The claimant has effectively discharged himself of the burden of proving that he is a convention refugee. As an LGBT person, Ahmet would face severe persecution if he returned back to Turkey. The claimant has provided substantial evidence that demonstrates the persecution, harassment, and acts of violence that Ahmet endured during his time in Turkey. In compliance with Section 97B of IRPA, the claimant has also justified that denying him refuge in Canada would pose a risk to his life or a risk of cruel and unusual treatment or punishment if the person is unable, or because of that risk, unwilling to avail themselves of the protection of that country. The risk that would be faced by the person in every part of that country and is not faced generally by other individuals in or from that country. If Ahmet is ordered to return back to Turkey, he would be subjected to severe human rights violations that would be conducted by state authorities and local officials. Therefore, he is unable to receive any protection in Turkey. The claimant is found to be a conventional refugee. Therefore, he is granted the status and privileges with it. Thank you.
Wow, we did it.
Good job, guys.
Wow, I have to say that was really professional. I am very impressed with your efforts and your script. I would love to give a lot of feedback, but I can't because, you know, there's still 5 other groups that have to present. But I'm just gonna give a little feedback because I can't help myself. I love how the detailed instructions at the beginning as to how the process is going to work out. I did see that you probably followed the link that I sent on Moodle among many other research resources that you went through in order to maintain the steps and the order of who is going to be speaking first and second and third. The references to the IRPA, that's very important, and that what differentiates you as immigration consultants from clients or claimants who are just representing themselves. They have no idea what IRPA is. They have no idea what IRPA is. So by you professional legal representatives representing claimants, it's all about the law and referencing the law. That's very important. There was cross-examination, there was re-examination. I love how the witness, when they walked into the room, there was a sound in the background. What was that sound effect?
That was my colleague, Shihab. He actually put a lot of work into creating that sound just so we can create that effect that we're actually in the room. So all that credit goes to him.
That was great because that shows that you followed the step-by-step saying that the expert witness will be waiting in the waiting room and then they will be asked to join when they're ready to speak. So you did exactly that. So thank you so much. The national documentation package, excellent. I mean, this is something that we must rely on when we are representing a client and we're defending and advocating on behalf of a claimant. Again, great questions asked by the Minister Council, by the immigration consultant. I love the closing arguments, the reasons for the decision that was made by the member. The reasons were listed at the end, again, with reference to the act. So a great job on that. I mean, all the other feedback, I will leave it for later, but this is just a very, very summary of what I had to say. Great job. I love the acting. I love the the language that you used, and of course the lovely suits and the outfits that you're wearing to show professionalism. And this is something that you will be learning also in your last module here with Herzing before you graduate, as to how we represent ourselves as legal professionals in the immigration industry. So well done. Thank you so much. If there's any questions from the class to group number 3, please feel free to ask now. If not, we will give the floor now to group number 1. So great job, group number 3. Congratulations on completing your mock hearing, and you can relax now and enjoy the rest of the mock hearings.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will turn off our cameras now.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.